World War II gave America its greatest heroes. The Medal of Honor, its highest military decoration, went to only the most extraordinary among them. But 5 of those recipients share one impossible detail. Everyone was left for dead before they earned it. These are their stories. In the years following 1967, William John Crawford reported to work at the United States Air Force Academy and mopped its floors. Cadets training to become officers walked past him daily and saw him as an unimpressive figure, easy to overlook. What they didn't know would redefine everything they thought they understood about what it means to hold America's highest military decoration, and why the man who earned it never once mentioned it. Crawford was a carpenter from Pueblo, Colorado, drafted in July 1942 at age 24. Nothing in that biography predicts what happened on Hill 424 near Altavilla Silentina in southern Italy on September 13, 1943. A volcanic hillside above the Salerno beachhead where the entire Allied foothold on the Italian mainland was hanging by a thread. No prior combat experience, no documented history of extraordinary courage, just a working class kid from Colorado who advanced ahead of his platoon because someone had to, and who carried one quality no army evaluation had ever thought to measure. He did not know how to leave a man behind. On the afternoon of September 13th, that quality would cost him everything. The German machine gun that opened up as Company 1 crested Hill 424 should have stopped the advance cold. But Crawford, rising from cover alone, crossed open ground under direct fire and killed the entire crew with a single grenade. His platoon moved forward. But then 2 more machine guns appeared in the ravine below, interlocking fields of fire, each covering the other's approach, designed to be impregnable to any single assault. The tactically correct response required coordination and fire support, but Crawford had neither. So he moved to the exact midpoint between both guns, simultaneously in the beaten zone of each, grenaded the first nest and killed the crew, drove under fire to the second, killed one gunner, chased the rest from their position, and turned their abandoned weapon on their backs as they fled. 3 positions, 1 private, no orders, no support. Then a comrade went down. Crawford, having just done more than any soldier could be asked, stopped, and German soldiers found him in that act of mercy. He walked into captivity because he would not leave a man on the ground, and while he sat in Stalag 2B, a German prisoner of war camp, for 19 months, his own government declared him dead. President Roosevelt signed his Medal of Honor, and Crawford's father collected it at Camp Carson in May 1944. When Crawford came home in 1945, his father told him everything: the medal, the ceremony, the citation signed by the president. Crawford listened and said nothing. He re-enlisted in 1947 without telling a single person in the army what he had done or what he had been awarded. He served 20 more years, retired as a master sergeant, and took the janitor job at the academy. In 1976, Cadet James Moshgat was deep in research on the Allied Italian campaign when he came across a wartime photograph and froze. The face staring back at him from the page was the man who mopped his dormitory floor. He turned to his roommate and said, "Holy cow, I think our janitor is a Medal of Honor recipient." They found Crawford in the hallway and asked him directly. He looked at them and said simply, "Yep, that's me." In 1984, President Ronald Reagan placed the medal in Crawford's hands, 40 years after his father had received it. When asked why he had never told anyone, Crawford said, "That was one day in my life, and it happened a long time ago." The next soldier had no quiet ending. He was left against a tree with 8 rounds, and didn't waste a single one. On the morning of July 7th, 1944, on the island of Saipan, American forces moving back through a position found Thomas Alexander Baker exactly where his comrades had left him. Propped against a small tree, pistol in hand, facing the direction the enemy had come from. What surrounded him told the rest of the story without a single word. Baker was a private from Troy, New York, drafted in October 1940 at age 24 into the 27th Infantry Division, a New York National Guard unit composed largely of working men from upstate New York who had never seen combat. By the time Saipan came, Baker had. And what the island had already seen from him in the 18 days before July 7th was something that defied every calculation of what one man could do alone. On June 19th, his entire company was pinned down by Japanese machine gun fire from a fortified ridge position. Baker grabbed a bazooka, sprinted 100 yards across open ground under direct fire without orders, and destroyed the position, killing all 12 soldiers inside with a single round. His company moved forward. But Baker wasn't finished. Placed in the rear guard, he discovered 2 fortified enemy pockets concealed behind the American line, 2 officers and 10 soldiers lying in wait, and killed all 12 without requesting support. Then he found 6 more in ambush and killed them too. 30 dead. 18 days before July 7th had even begun. Then the Banzai charge hit. Between 3,000 and 4,300 Japanese soldiers poured into the American line in the pre-dawn darkness, many armed with nothing but sharpened bamboo spears and bayonets fixed to broken rifles, ordered by their commanders to die killing Americans. The 1st and 2nd Battalions of the 105th Infantry lost 406 killed and 512 wounded in a single day, 80% of their fighting strength gone before nightfall. Baker was hit early. His rifle was shattered. A comrade began carrying him toward the American line, 50 yards away, when that comrade was shot. Baker made a calculation that had nothing to do with his own survival. No more men would die carrying Thomas Baker. He told them to leave him, asked for a pistol, and had them prop him against a small tree facing the enemy. "Get the hell away from me," he said. "I've caused enough problems. Give me your .45. When American forces retook the position, they found him exactly as his comrades had left him. Same tree, same position, pistol empty in his hand. 8 Japanese soldiers lay dead in front of him. He had not wasted a single round. Thomas Baker was dead. He was 27 years old, 7 days from his birthday. The United States Army awarded him the Medal of Honor posthumously, presented to his family, because there was no one else left to receive it. The next soldier didn't fire a single shot. He saved 75 men without a weapon, and the army had tried to discharge him before he ever reached the battlefield. On the night of May 5th, 1945, on the Maeda Escarpment above Okinawa, the soldiers at the base of a 400-foot cliff heard something that made no sense. Wounded men were appearing over the edge, one by one, descending slowly on a rope toward them. Above, on Japanese-occupied ground, was a single figure working in the dark. He had no weapon. He had never carried one. What kind of man does that? And how did he get there? Desmond Thomas Doss was born in Lynchburg, Virginia in 1919, raised with one absolute conviction, that the taking of human life was a sin. He carried that conviction into the army in April 1942, refused to touch a rifle, refused to train on Saturdays, and refused to eat the meat on his plate. His company commander, Captain Jack Glover, initiated formal psychiatric discharge paperwork to have him removed. But a 1940 law gave the army no legal mechanism to do it, so Doss went to war as a combat medic, the one soldier who would run toward the wounded, while everyone else ran from the fire. The question was what that looked like when the fire became something no training had ever prepared anyone for. By the time his battalion reached the Maeda Escarpment, a near vertical 400-foot cliff forming the central spine of Japan's Okinawa defense line, Doss had already earned 2 Bronze Stars for valor in Guam and the Philippines. But the Maeda Escarpment was something else. The Japanese had spent months honeycombing its reverse slopes with caves and tunnels, turning the plateau on top into a killing ground. On May 5, 1945, a Japanese counterattack overwhelmed the American position. The order to retreat was given. The surviving soldiers withdrew over the edge. The wounded stayed on top, and Doss stayed with them. What staying with them actually meant, the soldiers at the base of that cliff were about to find out. Alone on Japanese-occupied ground, with enemy soldiers advancing to within feet of him, Doss moved across the plateau, located each wounded man, treated him, dragged him to the edge, rigged a rope sling using a double bowline knot he had learned as a child, and lowered him 400 feet to the soldiers waiting below. Then he went back for another. Throughout those 12 hours, he repeated the same prayer. "Please, Lord, help me get one more." Not a prayer for his own survival, a request for one more man. His citation credits him with saving 75, but the cliff was not where Doss's war ended. 16 days later, a Japanese grenade landed near his position. Doss shielded 2 wounded soldiers with his own body, absorbed the shrapnel to his legs, gave up his stretcher to a more critically wounded man, and was then shot by a Japanese sniper. A bullet that shattered all the bones in his left arm. He fashioned a splint from a discarded rifle stock and crawled 300 yards to the aid station. The 75 men he had lowered from that cliff, the grenade he had absorbed, the arm he had splinted in the dark, all of it combined to make Desmond Doss the first and only conscientious objector in American history to receive the Medal of Honor. President Harry Truman placed it around his neck on October 12, 1945, and told him he considered it a greater honor to meet Desmond Doss than to be President of the United States. Captain Jack Glover, the man who had filed the psychiatric discharge papers, later said Doss was the bravest man he had ever known. The next soldier didn't need 12 hours. He needed one burning tank, one telephone, and one more round. On the afternoon of January 26, 1945, near the French village of Holtzwihr, a burning M10 tank destroyer sat alone on a road at the edge of the Bois de Riedvier forest. 6 German tanks and approximately 250 infantry were advancing toward it. Every American soldier in the area had either been killed, wounded, or ordered to withdraw into the tree line. Every soldier except Audie Leon Murphy, a 19-year-old second lieutenant standing on the turret of the burning vehicle, telephone to his ear, firing the mounted machine gun into the advancing German line. What made a man climb onto a burning tank and stay there is the question. What he did next is the answer. Murphy was born on June 20th, 1925 in Kingston, Texas, the 7th of 12 children of a sharecropper who abandoned the family while Murphy was still a boy. By age 10, he was hunting small game to feed his siblings, developing a marksman's instinct that no military academy could have produced. When Pearl Harbor brought America into the war, Murphy tried to enlist in every branch of the military. The Marines rejected him, the Navy rejected him, the paratroopers rejected him. At 5 feet 5 inches and 110 pounds, every elite branch of the United States military decided he was too small to fight. The regular army took him, and what they got back from that decision would take 27 months and 5 campaigns to fully understand. By the morning of January 26th, Murphy had been in continuous combat across North Africa, Sicily, Italy, and France, accumulating a combat record so extensive that the Holtzwihr action was the exclamation mark on an already complete sentence. He had already received the Distinguished Service Cross, 2 Silver Stars, and had been wounded multiple times before that January morning. But none of it had produced the moment that would define everything. That moment was still coming, and it was coming fast. When the German assault began, Murphy's company had 18 combat-effective men against 6 tanks and 250 infantry. Both M10 tank destroyers were quickly disabled. Murphy ordered his men to withdraw into the tree line. Then, he spotted the .50 caliber machine gun on the turret of the burning tank destroyer, a vehicle loaded with fuel and ammunition, already on fire, with 2 88mm shells having struck nearby. Every military instinct said leave it. Murphy climbed onto it instead. For over an hour, he directed artillery fire by telephone with one hand, while firing the machine gun with the other, killing or wounding an estimated 50 German soldiers, collapsing the entire assault. When a nervous lieutenant at battalion headquarters called to ask how close the enemy was, Murphy replied, "Just hold the phone and I'll let you talk to one of the bastards." The Germans withdrew. Murphy climbed down on a wounded leg, refused medical attention, and led his men back into the open in a counterattack. The United States Army awarded Audie Murphy the Medal of Honor and every other combat decoration it possessed. 33 awards in total. He was 19 years old. The boy every branch had called too small had become the most decorated American soldier of the entire war. The next soldier didn't stand on a burning tank. He stood on a cliff in the Pacific, and the army had spent 2 years trying to stop him from getting there. When the sun came up over Guadalcanal on October 25, 1942, the Marines who reached John Basilone's position found something that stopped them where they stood. The ground in front of his machine gun was covered in Japanese dead. Basilone was still at the gun, burned hands, no ammunition, a pistol and a machete at his feet. One of only 3 men in his group still standing after 2 days and 2 nights without sleep, food, or relief. What had happened between nightfall and that moment was the kind of thing that should have been impossible. It wasn't. Basilone was born on November 4th, 1916, in Buffalo, New York, the 6th of 10 children in an Italian-American family who grew up in Raritan, New Jersey. He enlisted in the Army at 17, spent 3 years in the Philippines, became a champion amateur boxer nicknamed Manila John in the Manila fight circuit, and re-enlisted in the Marine Corps in 1940, specifically because he believed the Marines would get him back to the Philippines faster. Instead, they sent him to Guadalcanal, an island he had never heard of, defending an airstrip whose possession would determine the entire strategic balance of the Pacific. What he carried onto that island was something no fight circuit had ever tested, and October 24th was about to find out exactly what that was. By the night of October 24th, Basilone commanded 2 heavy machine gun sections, 16 Marines operating 4 guns, defending the position that formed the main axis of the Japanese 29th Infantry Regiment's assault. Approximately 3,000 soldiers were advancing through the dark. Within the first hour, one section was put out of action by Japanese grenade and mortar fire. But Basilone, rather than consolidating, ran 200 yards through advancing Japanese soldiers, carrying 90 pounds of replacement ammunition with nothing but a pistol for protection, to restore the disabled section to action. He made that run multiple times through the night, killing every Japanese soldier he encountered, keeping both sections firing. But the ammunition runs could not last forever, and when the last round was gone, the situation became something no training manual had ever addressed. With the supply lines cut and the ammunition exhausted, Basilone held his position using a Colt .45 pistol and a machete against the soldiers still pressing the attack, killing those who reached the gun line at personal distance, in the dark, until dawn brought both a slackening of the assault and the arrival of Marine reinforcements. PFC Nash Phillips, who was present throughout and lost a hand in the fighting, said simply, "Basilone had a machine gun on the go for 3 days and nights without sleep, rest, or food." Of the 3,000 soldiers who had advanced on that position, 2,200 were dead by morning. President Franklin D. Roosevelt presented Basilone's Medal of Honor personally, the first enlisted Marine to receive it in World War II. But the medal was not the end of John Basilone's war. It was the beginning of the part that would kill him. The Marine Corps brought him home, put him on a stage, and told him the war needed his face more than it needed his rifle. He married Lena May Riggy on July 10, 1944. He shipped out 14 days later. On February 19, 1945, the first day of the Battle of Iwo Jima, John Basilone was killed in action on the beach. He was 28 years old. He is the only enlisted Marine in World War II to receive both the Medal of Honor and the Navy Cross, the Navy Cross awarded posthumously for his actions on the beach the morning he died. 5 soldiers, all left for dead, all decorated. Some stories don't follow the rules, and neither did they.